See, what we've done so far is in this unit, we have covered three learning outcomes. But in what have we covered in the three learning outcomes? One of the things we started off with was to understand the role of, strategic management and marketing within travel and tourism and hospitality sector. Now, we looked at some theoretical approaches of how strategy and management came about, and as the field has grown, how the importance of this field has come into the THM sector, travel, hospitality and management sector, or travel, tourism and management sector. Now, the things that we have looked at were that, because of the advancement of technology, with the advent of social media, with mobility generally increasing, what people have been able to do is travel, and now they've been able to, go on vacation and, obviously go to different destinations. Now, because this is the biggest employer in the world, so the industry is also growing rapidly, and because of the rapid pace of the growth in this industry, what has happened is a lot of, ancillary sectors have come up. So when we think of travel and tourism, we generally think of, just the hotels and maybe resorts and things like that. But people seldom realize that, when we talk about THM as a sector, it also includes airlines, operators, any sort of, ancillary industries, which include restaurants, takeaways, loads of other things, events management, which are all a part of this industry. Now, as the industry has grown, as the sector has opened up, what has happened is the need for marketing or management has come into this particular sector, because it generates a lot of revenue, a lot of people travel, and what we initially looked at was that the industry is well employing 750 million people around the world. It has a turnover which is in trillions of dollars. So there's a need for management and obviously, marketing, which has come into the sector as the sector has grown over the years. And this has especially been true for the time frame after the 1980s. Now, so in the second learning outcome, we looked at the approach, why management has come in, how the management. So in the first learning outcome, we looked at why strategic management. We looked at the basic concepts of understanding how they are relevant to this sector. In the second learning outcome, we applied some of these concepts of strategic marketing, looked at product concept, sales concept, production concept, and how this is relevant to the hospitality business. Now, in the third learning outcome, we looked at basically some developments in technology and how technology in particular has impacted how technology in particular has impacted this sector, because this is where we touched upon things like the booking system, the ability to be able to search and compare, the availability of locations coming in online. So you can actually see inventory online, and you could do bookings. It led to to a certain extent the creation of intermediaries, but also we do see the traditional demise of intermediaries like the booking agents and other bits and pieces are disappearing, and everything is moving online. We then also looked at briefly how, some of the issues in terms of security are important, because this is one sector, just like the health sector, which compares, collects, and also analyzes a lot of data which is related to customers. So because the records are stored, and the idea is that the operators or the players within this sector essentially want what do you call it? More and more data to tailor services. That has meant that the importance of data has also grown, but in general the data requirements, which are in terms of storage, analysis, dissemination, also threw up challenges of security. Now, in the fourth learning outcome, we are going to learn to understand that how this particular sector looks at contemporary issues. So when we talk about issues which actually affect this particular sector, what we are looking at is understanding that what are the issues which typically from a sense of when I use the word contemporary, that means they all occur at the same time. So when you are trying to book say a hotel, what you will see is that you are not only just putting your personal information, but you're putting your financial information, your credit card, other details, but also in terms of all giving out your preferences and who all are going to be traveling with you. So the idea of understanding with the advancement of technology is we need to understand how and what are the contemporary issues which affect the sector and how they are dealt with, in particular when we look at the sector handling these issues simultaneously. So some of the issues that are current and relevant is what we will discuss, and I think I've kind of summarized this into three issues for us to basically go through today, and then I will send you a detailed handout which will give you some more additional reading into why these are issues, how they are identified, and basically how they are dealt with at different levels when we talk about a hotel, when we talk about a resort or an operator or things like that.
Okay.
So let's look at some of the slides now. Contemporary issues means, the word definition of contemporary is that it means that things which can happen at the same time. So we are looking at issues which are looking at changing this sector. They happen on a daily basis. It's a routine that most of the people working within this sector face these issues. And these issues, because they occur, they also lead to some changes happening at a very large scale. So when I say changes happening, that means one of the key things is technology is changing on a daily basis. Things like when we look at a comparison sites like hotels and other bits and pieces, what we do get to see is that, the prices of the rooms change every day. And because the prices of the rooms change every day, or the tourism packages or the holiday packages change every day, what you are basically seeing is that kind of poses an issue, because when you are trying to book in as an operator or as a customer a particular package or a holiday, for your family, you see so many options, but you have to then choose and compare and look at which options are the best, which options kind of sound to be too good to be true, and some of the options wherein you are looking at, value for money. So one of the things that we look at clearly is that these issues which happen, within this sector or are faced by this sector, they have a huge impact on the business operations. Now, if a hotel is to drop the price of its rooms just to get some bookings in, that would mean that they might drop the price to say, okay, we're not getting bookings, but in a span of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the entire bookings would have gone, for that price. And that would mean that, they will not be able to kind of, provide, they will not be able to provide what you call, these services to some of the other interested, operators or agents that they work with. So a typical situation is during the winters here in the UK, for example, when the bookings and everything reduces, what most hotels tend to do is they start to offer bulk discounts to operators, to, travel agents and things like that, to get the bookings in for the hotel. And they tend to concentrate on more the business side of the market. But what it does is, at that point in time, one hotel reducing the cost has an impact on the business operations of the entire sector, because that means that if one starts to offer low prices, what will happen is the others are also forced to follow suit to be able to kind of have some offers of a similar nature in place. And that then becomes an issue that it leads to a bit of a price war, if I have to use that word. Now, the other thing is, because some of these things can now be managed at a click of a button. So if you have to decide pricing of the rooms, most hotels, when they're advertising, they will be able to use technology in terms of, if they're changing the prices on the websites or things like that, they can quickly change the prices and advertise using a tweet or a social media site that, okay, these are things or these are offers that we're going to put out. So one of the key things that we look at is that one particular operator, one particular hotel, if they look at leading this change in of offers or bringing down the price, it kind of generally starts to affect the entire sector or the entire place in a particular location, with regards to prices for the rooms. Is that okay? So let's look at, then get into a bit more detail. Let's look at the three issues in a bit more detail. What are the three issues? Now, one of the key things is that technological advancement. That means any update which is happening in technology. Now, whether that's something which has been done by a hotel, then others have to follow suit, because they then seem to be not having that particular offering as against some of the hotels. Now, a typical example that I would give you here, that when you look at virtual 3D tours, a lot of hotels which are premium hotels, when they advertise, rooms and other things, that is fine. But they have to also look at selling some of the premium services, things like, presidential suites or, suites in general. Now, when they look at that, in order for them to entice customers, what they have to do is, when this as a thing came into the industry, what a lot of hotels did was that it started off, I think, with the Marriott chain, they basically started to do 3D virtual tours or virtual tours essentially of these rooms, so that the customers could actually experience this firsthand even before looking at booking, because some of these bookings were very difficult to manage. They were always not utilized, and the hotel had to discount a lot of these suites in order to attract customers heavily in terms of prices. So in order to attract, kind of build on that option, what they did was they started to build tours, and these tours were then integrated onto the website. So when you book a room today, which is beyond a certain value, what you do get to see is an option or an opportunity to virtually view that room even before you book it. So you get to see what facilities it provides. You get to see things like, the differences between this and the economy room or economy deluxe room or a superior suite or things like that. So technology, and if one hotel is to start to do it, then the others will have to follow suit. And that means even if they are not looking at investing into upgrades, they have to typically look at doing that, because there is no other option for them to not follow suit. Otherwise, they would be seen to not having them as market leaders, but as in laggards. That means they are not going to be able to offer some of the features or ask for premium because customers are not able to see it before they book. So in general, when you look at technological advancements happening within the sector, what we do get to see is that this changes dynamics in this particular sector quite quickly. It leads to advanced bookings happening because people want experiences in general in this sector. They go in and they want to have a good experience, and this example of the virtual tours essentially was an add-on strategy to try and sell an experience and get advanced bookings in place for their high-end rooms as far as the hotel was concerned. Is that okay?
Yep.
So other things that we look at very briefly is technology obviously is helping to improve the service quality. Now, when I say service quality, is that it allows them to capture feedback, 360-degree feedback. That means feedback from operator, customer, consumer, all in one go. And then this can be analyzed in the background by the marketing or the strategy department to try and build in features which will facilitate a positive experience if the customer is to check into the hotel in the future. Right? So an example here would be that when you check out from the room, you're asked to do an exit quick survey or a questionnaire is given, which is just 4 or 5 questions. And this is primarily checking on the the features of the department or the feedback on the departments that you've used as a service. So it could be laundry, it could be, the 24-hour coffee shop, it could be the features like, the gym or the pool, it could be just the room itself. And these 4 or 5 questions, which are, taken as a feedback, are quickly using technology. If you look at 20 years back, it was all done on paper. But now normally what most hotels do is they give you an iPad or ask you to kind of do this as an optional checkout when you take the questionnaires and the survey, and you pretty much are getting all the data electronically in the back end to be able to analyze it and get results pretty much straight offhand. Some of them ask you to now tweet on social media, saying that if you've liked the experience, then could you tweet us or give us something in terms of a like on the Facebook page. And this then tends to build their reputation and kind of their brand online as well. So technology sorry. So technology is enabling this at a very rapid pace, but also for the ones who are not able to embrace the use of technology within the sector, means that this is becoming an ongoing issue for them, because it requires investment in terms of funds, a large scale upgrades if they haven't upgraded for a number of years. Things like, televisions, for example, or for example, the in-room viewing systems that we looked at. There were a lot of channels available for entertainment, flight guides, or things like that. When you look at aircrafts, they always keep upgrading. So when the new airliner, the 777 Dreamliner was introduced, the British Airways upgraded the Thales system, which is their in-flight entertainment system, to have more movies, bigger screens, and that kind of forced the other operators in this area, apart from Emirates and others, to also upgrade and have from a 4-inch screen to a 6-inch screen, even in the economy. And in the business class and the first class, that screen upgrade was done to a 15-inch, which is like almost like a TFT LCD monitor. So what happened was, this has pushed the other operators to follow suit. This is not an option with them anymore. They have to upgrade. Correct?
Correct.
Now, let's look at the second channel. The second channel that we look at is, which is an issue as of now, is because of environmental awareness. There is a lot of waste which this sector also produces. You can imagine that, if you're out on a vacation and you go out and have a coffee, or you go and have a meal in the coffee shop, what happens is a lot of meals are cooked, and these meals are cooked within the cafes or the buffets, and then if they are not served, they have to be done away with. It is not something which can be used the next day. So there's a lot of environmental waste which is being produced within this sector, and this has become a second burning issue in terms of issues which the operators need to solve, is that they need to minimize the waste that is being created. If they can't minimize, then the waste has to be put into recycling so that it is able to not harm the environment, but the operators are working in tandem with the environment to preserve it and to also kind of, manage it in the location that they are. So when you see a large level, resorts which are opened up, what most government departments do is when they offer these contracts to these departments or, large resort companies, what they do is they kind of offer that you have to maintain the landscaping, you have to kind of maintain the area, create employment, and also look at managing the environment in terms of, wastage and recycling as well. So this is one of the key responsibilities which is put on with these guys when you look at, independent resorts being created, or they give out a section of the beach, for example, or an area within a city. And these people, when they pick up the contracts, it's a long-term commitment that they have to sign in to ensure that they are able to preserve the environment and also bear the moral responsibility of contributing to protecting the environment, preserving the resources, and to a certain extent also ensuring that they are developing those resources so that the upkeep of the environment is done in a fair manner. Okay. Now, a lot of waste which gets produced was initially dumped. If you look at, for example, the hotel industry in particular, which is the biggest chunk within the travel and tourism sector. But now there are means and measures being put in place to look at recycling than just dumping it into landfills. And this, over a point in time, was realized that it was polluting the groundwater. And because the level of pollution, with the groundwater can affect our water tables and, obviously the fresh water that we consume, a lot of these places were asked to basically look at recycling rather than just dumping, because dumping basically contributed to increasing the level of pollution from one location. They were putting it into landfills, and that led to a drizzle in terms of doing away with the waste for short term. But over a point in time, these locations were also filled up and used, and they were looking at new locations to be able to do dump off the wastage. So over a point in time, I think in most places, in most ministries, and in most countries, you have now this is an issue wherein if you are looking at seeking a license to open a hotel, open a resort, or work within the sector, one of the key pledges that you have to sign on as an operator is that you have to sign on to the environmental pledge in order to preserve the environment and conserve the environment while you still continue to offer services from that aspect. Okay. Now the third issue, we have kind of touched on this, is security, because this sector actually looks at collecting a lot of data. That data needs to be stored, so we clearly understand that. But one of the key elements which has stepped into this sector is terrorism. Now we have seen over the years a lot of news, a lot of coverage of people getting attacked when they're out and about, on holidaying, and terrorism as a factor has come into a key aspect within security. So when we looked at the last, in the news, Las Vegas shooting which happened, I think a couple of weeks back, which was a major lapse. We saw some shootings happening in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt a couple of months back. Now, this has become a mainstay when we talk about security. We're not just talking about data, but here we are talking about terrorism as well. And most hotels now have been asked to look at investing into security. Now, because this is something which you cannot, it's like insurance. So we take insurance, you drive a car, Yeah. Now you take out car insurance. Now you know that you're a perfect driver, you're not going to have an accident, but you still take out insurance because it gives you peace of mind in the event of having an accident. You and the car or the third party driver, is covered. Similarly, hotels have now been asked to put security measures in place, which would look at countering terrorism. So when we look at travel and tourism sector in particular, what we do see is that there is a increasing level of security measures now being put or have been asked now to be put by governments in certain places or in certain areas. Like we look at the Arab Spring, most of the countries within Northwest Africa, Middle East, when they had the revolutions, a lot of tourists were actually affected directly because it led to large-scale looting and plundering of tourists in particular in terms of extortions. So that way, most of the hotels that you go to or you book, you will have a peace of mind if you know that there is increased security or the hotel actually invests in security measures to kind of prevent these incidents to happen. So on a large scale, this has become an issue or a contemporary issue because it's an ongoing issue, because this is something you cannot predict. You don't know the frequency, but you still have to have these measures in place to be able to, look at countering this as a problem or an issue. Now, when you look at airlines in particular, what you do get to see is a lot of countries are now had increased a level of frisking. So after the 9/11, you see there was a ban on carrying liquids within the aircrafts. And that ban only got lifted, I think in 2015 or 2016, but a lot of airports in Europe and in America, they still have that ban wherein what they don't allow is they don't allow any form of liquid or, any form of liquid which can, apart from baby milk and things like that, to be. And these are obviously contribute security measures because what they want is an additional level of security which will allow any such incident to happen in the future. Is that okay? So when we look at, some of the aircraft bombings which happened, I think the last one that I can think of was the Libya bombing, which typically happened over Scotland for an aircraft from Air Canada or something like that, if I remember. And that was, one of the large-scale air disasters. There was one which happened, I think a couple of months, no, probably about a year and a half back, when the annexation of Crimea happened by Russia. One of the Ukrainian aircrafts were downed by a missile that led to the loss of 300 passengers, and that was nothing but an act of terrorism. So these things, and there was another one I think I can recall a couple of months back, wherein a Russian aircraft which flew off from Egypt actually blew up in the air. And that was down to explosion happening in the aircraft. I think that was last year, September, October. So increased terrorism is also, or the effect of that on the sector is looking at, making tougher security measures come in so that it does not lead to loss of life. And also it gives a peace of mind to the tourist or the traveler who's actually going in, availing a particular, say a holiday in a particular destination. Is that okay?
Yes.
Any questions on this so far?
So far, no. Everything
good. Good stuff. So now, basically, what I've done here is the handout that I'm going to send to you will basically look at covering why do we look at doing research and how research helps actually plan strategy within this sector. So there are a few slides that I've included which basically have some details about the definition of, obviously, just to refresh, strategic marketing, what are the marketing strategies which are employed within this sector, and then what we want to be able to do is develop this into research, that how these strategies actually help you to collect data, the data the industry collects, the consumer data, and this data then allows the hotels or the operators who are collecting the data to be analyzed internally to be able to produce meaningful knowledge and information which can then be used for marketing purposes to kind of attract customers and provide better experience in terms of stay arrangements or better experience in terms of tourism when these services are offered. Is that okay? So this is something that I'm not going to go through in today's session because we want to cover this up in a bit more detail when we look at building some, basic things up as far as, research is concerned. So let me just quickly, sorry. So what I'm going to do today is, after this particular session, I'm going to send you this presentation. But apart from that, I'm going to send you a bit of a detailed email, which will actually kickstart Unit 6 and give you some background in terms of why do we need to do a research, what are the outline and, the key sections in which research is done. And in conjunction with that, what I'm going to send you is a, research handout, which basically will be like an ebook. But this is something that you need to go through in a bit more detail so that you are absolutely crystal on the task 4.1. But you're also going to be using this for your Unit 6.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so this is something which is a bit of a reading that you need to do. But apart from that, we will do an overview of this particular, unit, which is section 4.1. Right in? Unit section of AC 4.1, but also will start off this unit which is advanced research for business managers, which is Unit 6 in your in your course. Okay. Now this unit is something which is going to be directly related to your MBA TopUp as well, because this unit you are going to be using to do a dissertation. And it is important for you to kind of understand and put a lot of emphasis on this unit, because what I would suggest you to do is, in order to not to increase your work, what you're going to do is, when we pick up Unit 6 from our side and start to do that, what we are going to do is, so what I need to do is basically this unit, this assignment that you do is going to be 4,500 words. But as you are going to start your MBA TopUp program, this is something that you will need to do. This particular unit is something that you will need to do in about 15,500 words or 15,000 words for the TopUp. So what we are going to do is, when we teach you this unit, from my aspect, what we are going to do is we are going to teach you in a bit more detail, because when we know the university teaches it, they only do one webinar and they send you this particular guide, which I've opened up on the screen. Right, and then you're on your own to get feedback, and obviously you have to write the 15,000 words, the topics and all those things yourself. So this unit carries about 50 credits in your MBA TopUp, but obviously about 20 credits in your level 7. So why is it important is, if you do this unit quite well in your MBA TopUp, you're looking at moving your grade to merit or even higher.
All right.
So my suggestion to you is, when I send you this email today after the session, you will need to start reading it through now, so that when you develop your research for the unit, which is going to be a bit of a subset or a whole when you expand it for your dissertation.
All right.
Right? So, or if I have to just simplify this and explain with an example, would be that I would suggest that you pick up an area of research, for example, within the tourism sector, if you want to, and you would want to kind of say things like, for example, I want to study the impact of, say, brand and its impact on a particular destination. So particular destination could be your resort. Now in this, what you're looking at doing is, you're looking at picking up an independent variable and a few dependent variables. Now, independent variable is going to be something which is the sector. That means tourism sector. Because whether you do a research in tourism sector or somewhere else, that sector still stands. That is why it is independent variable. And the dependent variables will be, you're studying brand equity or the impact of branding and brand equity on your resort. So these two then become dependent variables that you're going to study in relation to the tourism and hospitality sector. And this particular unit we are going to do in about 4 or 5 chapters essentially. So what we are going to do is develop an introduction first. Once we develop an introduction, then we will expand this into literature review. Once the literature review is done, we will get into something called research methodology. When we do the research methodology, after that you have to collect data or do sampling and go out and collect data through Google surveys or SurveyMonkey and things like that. And once you collect the data, then you present your findings, tabulate your findings, present your findings, and then in the last one you kind of conclude, make recommendations and talk about issues that you face within the research while you are doing it. and that will consist of about 15,000 words.
All right. Cool.
So that what is I have explained here. So we start with a bit of background, problem statement, research aim and objectives, questions that you will put in the research. I've given you some examples of how the research objectives could be, what is dependent variable, and then in towards the end, what I've suggested you to do is you are looking at developing this into a 15,000 word dissertation, which you will submit for your MBA top-up. That we will use here to cover your assignment. So it will not require you to do work twice on this unit.
Oh, good.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is it for in terms of just explaining. And what we are going to do is do the teaching on this unit from next week, which is going to be the session taking up the advanced business research unit. With regards to your your course.
Okay, sure.
Okay, great. Any questions on unit 1 so far?
So far, no questions. Everything is good. Yeah.
Good stuff. What we'll do is we'll close this session for today with also closing unit 1. I'm going to send you some handouts which I've already prepared, for your learning outcome 4, and also a bit of a reading along with this presentation that I'm sending you, which will give you some details of why basically some details for you to be able to study to understand contemporary issues.
All right, sure.
Okay, good stuff.
Yep.
And what I would suggest now is that within the next week, 10 days, my suggestion will be that if you start working on a draft document of your assignment for unit 1.
Okay, yeah. Cool, yeah.
And then what we are going to do is, I think, as always, you'll get the invite for Thursday/Saturday for covering the unit or starting the unit 6, which is research.
All right, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Good stuff. I will then hopefully catch up with you later this week. And